TLDR, K-pop songs are getting shorter and I absolutely hate it. So for a bit of context on where this rant is even coming from, I first have to describe a video that's going to come out circa early 2025, and that is only if I don't give up on it. I had the totally rational, sane, and reasonable idea to make a video where I listen to every K-pop 2024 release, rate it, and compile it into a singular video. Everything from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. I know I mentioned very briefly in the video I made about Baby Monster's album Drip. Don't worry, I'm not going to say anything more about that particular album, that my life thus far has mainly consisted of 3 or 4s out of 10. And this is the reason why. I don't know if this year of K-pop has just been full of mediocrity, or this is the first time I'm really paying attention to it, so it's more noticeable, but there have been releases one after another that have just completely demoralized me from making this video. And the reasons I don't want to put the video out is twofold. First, people will watch it and realize how many of the releases I didn't like this year and think that I'm someone who goes into K-pop albums wanting to hate on them, which is absolutely not true. Or that these particular reviews are representative of my feelings of those groups as a whole, which again isn't really true, since I think this year has been a pretty lackluster showing all around. And one of those groups happened to be TXT. During one of my sessions where I was just reviewing release after release, I was just giving them 5 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 5 out of 10, and finally I got down enough the list to see that my next review was meant to be TXT's Sanctuary. I just remember breathing a sigh of relief. I was like, oh my god, thank goodness, finally my ears get a break. I can listen to something good, and I can finally rate something higher than a 5. And then I proceeded to listen to it, and my feelings about this mini album are very similar to the feelings I have about a lot of mini albums this year. So I do want to make a point before I go on that this is not a TXT problem. This is not a TXT specific issue either. They just happen to be the one that broke the camel's back. Or my back, more accurately. And that ever-elusive issue that I have is how short K-pop songs have gotten. And it's not just title tracks anymore, it's B-sides as well. Now, this is not a new phenomenon by any means, but this year especially is when I noticed it happening to each and every group. There is not a single one that has gone untouched by this. And since I'm using TXT as my titular example of this issue, in this album, Sanctuary, there are 6 songs, and not a single one cracks 3 minutes. The playtime in its entirety is only 15 minutes, and that's only if you round up. The idea of that is absolutely absurd to me, because the very obvious consequence of having such short songs is the fact that they're severely underdeveloped. So I'm gonna say it right now. If I were to rate this album today, I would probably give it somewhere between a 4 or 5 out of 10. And a couple of those points could have easily been added if the songs were just longer. And that is simply for the fact that they would have had the time necessary to implement what I will be ranting about for the next 5 minutes, payoff. For the kind of music a lot of people enjoy, I think it's more important to have the concepts of setup and payoff. The trend that has been circulating in K-pop at the moment just has setup. There is no payoff, because there is not enough time to have payoff. For example, I don't think anything in Sanctuary is meritless. There are genuinely good moments in this mini album, but it's completely screwed over by the fact that the arrangement is a hot mess. More often than not, the part of the song that gets cut off is the bridge. Every time I think about that, I die a little bit inside. It makes me think back to those compilations on YouTube, the ones that cover the most iconic K-pop bridges or the most beautiful ones, and I slowly realize that there will be next to 0 from 2024 that take a spot in those future compilations, because 2024 K-pop has no bridges. The bridges have been burnt. Like I said, there are genuinely good parts of these songs. The issue is that they set up these really intriguing ideas, whether it's in the sense of like melodies, lyrics, or production. The issue is that there is no payoff, because the song isn't long enough to see that payoff come to fruition. So what happens is that I'm just sitting there, listening to Over the Moon, the title track of the mini album, and by the time I finally get into the groove of it, it ends. That's a huge fucking issue. Now, the why behind all of this is fairly obvious. I think number 1, trend chasing. I think it would be very remiss of me not to mention New Jeans' influence when it comes to this. From concepts to styling to music duration, it's very clear to see that in the past 2 years, New Jeans has had a lot of influence in the way of the K-pop scene. Number 2, TikTok. It's unavoidable at this point that TikTok is used for K-pop promotion. So K-pop groups and the teams behind them are starting to adapt in ways that appeal more to the platform. This results in more simplistic songs and more simplistic choreography. Each K-pop company is just hoping to be able to create the next hit on TikTok. And finally, shorter songs are a great and easy way to boost stats. With songs becoming shorter and shorter, it's easier to stream more and more, which equates to better numbers and can make K-pop groups look more esteemed. But I do think that this rampant production of short songs will bite K-pop companies in the ass very quickly. Because, like I mentioned, short songs honestly don't have a lot of complexity to them, which makes a lot of these songs very one-note. And if you cannot grab onto what the song has to offer, then you won't return to it afterwards. Whereas if a song is a little longer and has more meat on its bones, there are different things that you can find interesting about it. Maybe not the song in its entirety, but you can come back and find yourself growing into it. I would even use the example of Apate. I probably butchered that, I'm so sorry. It's the new song by Rosé and Bruno Mars. No, I do not think that this song is bad in any way. I think it's a really cute song, it's fun, but it is quite plain to see it is very simplistic. So if you do not like the main melody of the song, if you don't like the hook, you're not gonna like the song, because that's all there is to it. Which, again, me stating the obvious, not every song needs to be this momentous occasion. Some songs can simply just be what they are. But not every song can be that. Or at least, I hope it won't be that. And I don't have a personal vendetta against these types of songs either. There's nothing wrong with having 1 or 2 tracks on your records like this. The issue arises is when all of them start congregating on a single release, because the end results are catchy songs that have no staying power. A statement I feel like applies to all of the songs on this mini album. It's also really important to note that short songs can be super impactful if they're designed purposefully that way. But a lot of the releases lately don't strike me like that. A lot of them feel as though they had a set idea of what they wanted the song to be, and then realized after the fact once they had finished it, oh wait, no, we have to cut off the last minute of this. TXT's Sanctuary is a great example of that. The mini album as a whole feels very half-baked and incomplete. And if what I mentioned isn't the case, if this is actually the idea that they had in mind when making the songs, then I posit that if they just worked on this for like the next year, they probably could have finished these off in really spectacular ways, and it would have been a great mini album. To kind of end this video, I do want to return to an idea I said in the beginning of the video, which is I don't think a lot of the reviews I would give in 2024 would be truly indicative of how I feel about these groups. And that is extremely true on the part of TXT. Now, to be clear, I don't stan them. I don't even really listen to their music that casually. Whether I like their music honestly depends from release to release. Some of their stuff I straight up don't like, some of them I do, but Temptation in particular is a mini album I will stand by. Like, from start to finish, just bangers. I say start to finish, but it's only like 5 songs. TXT is an impressive group that makes good music that I just don't happen to like. But I knew from the second I listened to this mini album that that is not what was happening here. I've listened to most of their discography at this point. The only ones I've abstained from are Japanese releases, and that's honestly because I don't really like Japanese albums, with some exceptions. And while there is a chunk of TXT's music that I don't really like, I can 100% see how other people would find something to appreciate about them. This, however, this was... I can definitely say I didn't like Sanctuary. Not because of the usual reason, which is that they just happened to do a particular sound I didn't like, but because it just didn't feel finished. And that's how I feel about a lot of songs these days. With the duration of songs being lessened and lessened, I feel like some of the complexity of them are also being lost. And this isn't me trying to put, older, I say older K-pop in quotation marks, on like some kind of pedestal. Like, oh, back in my day, we had real music. I just feel like there isn't as much effort being put into mini albums this year, and I can't figure out if it's a creative burnout type of issue, or if it's people misunderstanding that simple equals boring. Because those two aren't the same thing. Anyway, that's all I really had to say about the topic. I posit the question over to you guys now. Please let me know in the comments how you feel about it. Am I right? Am I absolutely wrong? shout at me. Do whatever you want. I don't really care. I'd love to hear it regardless. With that, that'll be it from me for now. See y'all later. Bye-bye.